this is our fourth in a series, and boy, if you've never been on one before, you picked a great one to join, because our speaker today is an extraordinary Rotarian and even more of an extraordinary person. Miss Helen Reisler was, she's a past district governor. She was the first female president of the Rotary Club of New York City, and she was president during 9/11. She's also been the representative, RI's representative to the UN from 2007 to 2017. She's a marketing consultant by trade. She's in the who's who of marketing throughout the world. And right now she's right in the middle of the New York City pandemic, which is probably the city in the entire world that is being most affected by this. Helen is so used to dealing with crises and helping Rotarians get through crises. She's led through many crises, and she's led her clubs above it, so that when we come out the other end, we come out a lot stronger. So y'all have heard enough from me. I don't want to take any more of Helen's time. So Helen, the stage is all yours. Thank you for being with us and taking.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Am I unmuted?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, Amber, and District Governor Jim for inviting me to share my thoughts today. My warmest greetings to all my Texas friends and those who have joined us. We come together in the midst of one of the greatest challenges we have ever had to endure, a world pandemic. New York City alone is now a war zone and has become a world epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, unrecognizable, especially to those who always enjoyed it as the world's multicultural playground. As of today, New York City checks in with 10,000 fatalities due to this unrelenting disease. Overwhelmed morgues have filled refrigerated trucks with body bags outside of hospitals. Lack of space in cemeteries have necessitated bodies to fill the burial grounds on Hart Island, better known to many of us as the old Potter's Field, where the unclaimed dead were always sent. At least 27 homeless people among the 460 confirmed to have COVID-19 in New York City have died as of Wednesday. The New York City Department of Social Services has found social distancing in this group extremely difficult. In past so-called normal times, the homeless relied on loose change from passing pedestrians, public bathrooms, and soup kitchens, now unavailable. On top of that, the shelter population has swelled, creating additional concerns. To reduce density, the city has spent about $200 per night to rent hotel rooms in which symptomatic homeless people can be isolated. The mayor says 6,000 single adults will be in hotels, not traditional homeless shelters. The priority is seniors who are COVID-19 positive. To limit gatherings in the shelters, they're staggering the meal times and allow them to stay during cleanups rather than wandering around outdoors. Remember the beautiful East Meadow in Central Park? Today you would see a startling new sight, which might remind you of a scene right out of the Civil War. White hospital tents set up right over the beautiful grass, staffed by volunteers to receive the overflow of patients overwhelming the local hospitals. I could go on and on. It's not a pretty sight. But in the midst of this dismal scene, at 7 p.m. every evening, you will hear the clapping from hundreds of open windows and terraces, along with the loud clattering of pots and pans as grateful New Yorkers thank our heroes, the doctors, the nurses, and all the healthcare workers who are putting their lives on the line every single day, regardless of the lack of sufficient masks, gloves, food, and sleep, in a race to save lives. And many are being saved as well. So how are we supposed to cope with all of this? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Is there even an end? Do we give up all hope in the face of this silent enemy? A resounding no. Yes, this is a tragic event. It takes our hearts out. It frightens us. But it also gives us yet another opportunity, perhaps our most challenging yet, to show the world who we are as Rotarians and to give future generations hope. We still have work to do. We may be confined in our various enclosures, but that doesn't take away our most effective weapon, the source of all our life-saving projects for years and years, our strong bond of Rotarian fellowship. It's imperative that we encourage all clubs to continue these weekly Zoom meetings where we can easily create timely and meaningful projects to help our healthcare workers, our neighbors, the elderly, the children, and each other. I've already seen this start to happen. We as Rotarians are lucky to have this global platform where we're starting to share information, real information from the front, devoid of all the politics and the rumors. We have all kinds of opportunities on the internet as well. One of the newest is from the Global Impact Group. It's called Volunteer Surge, which is a free online training program that teaches you to help professional healthcare workers fight the virus from the home or in the field. You learn through videos and exercises. One of my New York club members has developed an ongoing adventure game for young children involving contests and educational prizes. There are clubs sewing masks, making hats for newborn babies, Rotaractors volunteering to drop off groceries for the elderly, Rotarians phoning isolated elderly to check up on them or just to chat for a few minutes. The most important thing as individuals right now is to create a routine, eat, sleep, exercise, make phone calls, get on a Zoom meeting, and practice resilience. It's not a trait that people either have or do not have. It involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed in anyone. The purpose being to increase emotional well-being in the face of events that can lead to physical and emotional upset. It's a capacity which helps people and organizations to respond well to challenges, setbacks, and even a crisis. It describes the ability to bounce back, to recover, and respond with commitment and optimism. I would like to share with you a little bit about my own background in learning personal resilience and managing life's changes, which helped me tremendously when I was called upon to handle a terror attack during my New York Rotary Club presidency. When I was 6 years old, I was going through a period when I couldn't fall asleep at night and was calling my parents every few minutes. My father, out of concern, came into my room one of those nights, sat on the edge of my bed, and asked me, "Helen, what's wrong? Why can't you fall asleep? Is there something you're worrying about?" It all spilled out, all my young child's concerns about the seemingly complex world surrounding me and not knowing how to fix it. My parents' continuous arguing, the new first grade class I was about to enter, how I would get along with my best friend who was moving away. "Daddy, I can't fall asleep until I know that everything will be all right." Well, in the next 2 seconds, my father taught me one of the most valuable lessons I have ever learned in life. "Helen," he said, "nothing is ever all right in life. Each difficult situation eventually ends, but then another one will take its place, and then that'll end, and another one. And in each situation, you will face it to the best of your ability, knowing that nothing ever stays the same. From each situation, there are lessons learned and new opportunities that arise that will make you stronger and able to cope with this life." So, personal resilience and managing life's changes. Yes, nothing ever stays the same. We're called upon to manage change throughout our lives. This applies to our personal life, our business life, and even our fantasy life when reality gives us a jolt. Although creating harmony and balance has always been my goal, I have learned to expect the unexpected and even leave room in my planning calendar each week for the inevitable crisis that will most certainly arise. I've come to realize that each person has a different way of coping with these unexpected challenges. I, for one, am known to be a survivor and innovator who has faced up to quite a few of these situations by springing into action, regardless of the fact that I'm one of the biggest worriers you will ever meet. Nobody ever expected the disaster of 9/11, and I certainly never expected to be called upon to handle it. Neither did I expect to be one of the first teachers to be mugged in her classroom during the turbulent 70s, have twins unexpectedly, change my chosen career, survive 2 mergers and acquisitions, become a fairly young widow, or be told over the phone while alone in the house that I had cancer. Negative changes are not the only ones that test our endurance. Positive ones can present different kinds of challenges and create their own kinds of stress. In my own life, for instance, I have found myself dealing with the challenge of being the only woman on boards of directors, the first woman president of a male-dominated club, and an appointment as an adjunct lecturer in a university graduate school teaching teachers a course that I realized I had never taken myself. Life's ongoing changes. How does one manage them without falling apart and emerge an even stronger person? I have observed that each person seems to have a pattern that defines his or her life. Sometimes this pattern is not clear until you look back at your life in later years. It starts developing early on, and I would say that it's a combination of a person's makeup combined with his or her way of thinking. What you choose to do with your observations will make a big difference in your relationship with life in general. In each of the challenging situations in my own life, I have applied the traits that I had developed while exposed to various events in my previous years, and they have served me well. I grew up in Brooklyn and went to a public school where I was exposed to children of various backgrounds, religions, and cultures. I observed that no matter where we come from, we seem to have similar basic desires to be accepted, respected, and determine our own destiny as human beings. This insight has proved invaluable to me in my dealings with all types of people in my teaching, media, and business careers. Without emotional intelligence, you can't go very far as a leader. Having sleepovers at friends' homes in my early life afforded me an important look at reality. It was through these visits that I learned never to waste my energy envying others. What goes on in people's lives is often very different from the facade you see on the outside. Growing up as a little girl during the Second World War, when people's greatest strength was their sense of unity, taught me the effectiveness of teamwork and the importance of spirituality and hope. My sense of American patriotism is with me to this day, and it was an important motivation in my leadership position after the terrorist attack of 9/11. My parents, having experienced the effects of the Great Depression, taught me the rewards of delayed gratification, and I was expected to work towards my goals. I learned to conserve money and choose priorities. Never have I felt a sense of entitlement. In fact, I still often hear my father's mantra, "You must prove yourself first." These factors enabled me to rise above a temporary economic setback in my marriage when we had to change our lifestyle Although not an easy time, it turned out to be an unexpected and valuable gift. We became closer, my husband and myself. We learned who our real friends were and discarded the users. From each setback comes growth. This belief also enabled me to prove the value of my skills to over 250 men who reluctantly sponsored me for membership as one of the first women in the Rotary Club of New York in 1988. Yes, I had heard later that half of them quit the club. Not because of me, they didn't know who I was, they just knew a woman was coming in. So that was one of my challenges. The end result was not only my election in 2001 as the first woman president in the club's 92-year history, but my successful coordination of the events of the 9/11 terrorist attack. I like to think that this may also have helped to open the doors for other women with ability as well. I have learned not to let the naysayers deter you when your gut feeling tells you that you're on the right path. People very often project their own fears, jealousies, and personal agendas disguised as advice. When I created the 9/11 Adoption and Vacation Committee to send the first responders on weekend retreats, there were people who criticized us for a wasteful endeavor. The emotional letters of thanks that I still treasure from the firefighters and others confirm my choice of action. I am a visionary. When a problem occurs or when developing a plan, I can see the end result or solution in my mind. And then I go back to step one and work towards it. But I've noticed that when you've done everything in your power to attain that goal and nothing seems to be working, you must let it go. It's a message that this is not supposed to happen at that time. Another door will open, which is usually the transition door. This next step will connect you to something else which you never expected. Flexibility is just as important as perseverance. Teaching was my chosen profession. Although I loved it, sadly, the entire environment changed in New York City in the early 70s. The fact that I was mugged in my own classroom by intruders is a perfect example of those times. I tried my best to be the policeman that certain classroom situations demanded, even attained a master's degree as a reading specialist, which might present me with less classroom drama. But it was time for a change. My unexpected success in the business world gave me new joy and expanded my individual growth as well. I want to make it clear here that nothing is ever wasted. The title of my master's degree was Critical Thinking and Reading. My teacher training and classroom experience were valuable tools in this new environment. My success in a small company connected to a position in a large corporation. I became involved in professional organizations, one of them being Rotary. I was elected to boards of directors and became the moderator of a cable TV business show. Who would have thought? There is one skill that I believe to be the most important one for survival in life: communication. Good communication prevents misunderstandings, stabilizes relationships, saves marriages, prevents wars, and is invaluable in the process of any negotiation. It is even the deciding factor between life and death in a crisis. This is the one skill that has tied everything together in my own life. Through the videos I produce, the international speeches I deliver, the articles I write, and the modern technology that I am involved with, I am able to share so much with others in hopes of creating some harmony and balance in this world of constant change. Some of you have heard my presentation about 9/11, what happened in New York at another crisis time, and some of you never have. So I'm going to tell you briefly about a crisis that I was challenged with when I least suspected it. On July 1st, 2001, I was installed as the Rotary Club of New York's first female president. The club was about to celebrate its 92nd anniversary, and it made a big production of my installation. A group from the New York Police Department marched me in, singing "New York, New York." I announced my agenda for the coming year, and everybody toasted. And we thought it would be the historic event of the year. The morning of the September 11th, I was in my Brooklyn apartment getting ready for a club meeting. My daughter called and told me to turn on the television. I watched as the second plane struck, and it dawned on me that I was on an island. My family was not there. My husband was in the suburbs at our home. My children were scattered. I worried that some of the members of my Rotary Club were at the World Trade Center, a fear that was later confirmed. I never felt so alone. Then I turned on my computer. Messages from Rotarians all over the world were pouring in. From Lebanon, England, Israel, France, club presidents were asking, how can we help? I spent days at my computer trying to keep up with the messages from people in different time zones. I hardly slept. Then the checks began coming in. I called our club's executive director and asked him to work with the chair of our club's foundation to open a special account. Then I called an emergency club meeting. We had 185 members at the time, and we're fortunate that at the end, we did not lose anyone in the attacks. I remember thinking it was important to keep the members feeling safe and hopeful. I worried that those who did not live in Manhattan might be afraid to come to the meetings, but everyone showed up. I recalled how as a young child during World War II, I participated in air raid drills at my school. As the children were hiding their heads in their hands, my music teacher had asked me to run up and down the halls singing "Home, Home on the Range," just to give them some hope. After 9/11, I felt the same call to inspire the members of my club. At every meeting, we played patriotic songs. I invited firefighters and others who'd been injured to attend. I invited people who had lost loved ones, a widow and her child, a father who had lost his son and who continued to attend meetings. I made the club a haven for those who had been affected by the attacks, not only to support them, but to motivate the members of my club. I was often up until 3 a.m., coordinating the teams I'd organized. That was one of the most important things I did: make personal contact with members, organize and motivate them, give them hope. I had an internet team to spread the word. We used the internet to explain to donors what we were doing with their money and to show them the reality of the situation in New York. Another committee organized members to head to Ground Zero to volunteer their skills. All of our members have unique skills. One was a forensic dentist who helped identify victims in the days after the attacks. One was an officer in the New York branch of the American Lung Association who tested the air quality at the disaster site. Another, who owns a courier service, used his van to bring bottled water to the volunteers. We also had an 85-year-old member who helped the Salvation Army volunteers serve food. Then there was a committee to identify people who needed emergency funds. Some of the committee members weren't even Rotarians, but they later joined. I made applications to hand out to people who needed assistance. Team members traveled on foot to churches, synagogues, firehouses, and police stations. Everything was personal and well organized. We went to meetings of the Better Business Bureau and various charitable organizations to find out where the need was the greatest. We found individuals with touching stories who needed our help. Some had lost their adult children and suddenly found themselves the sole caretakers of their grandchildren. Another man lost his daughter, who had been helping him pay the rent and maintain his home. When Rotary clubs in Michigan volunteered to assist children who had lost a parent in the attacks, I formed another committee to coordinate that effort. In all, the Michigan clubs adopted 8 mothers and their children. For an entire year, the club sent the families money for expenses, along with letters of support. The committee also organized a way to give back to the first responders who worked day and night at Ground Zero in the months after the attack. Volunteers, orphaned firefighters, and police officers, weekend family getaways at vacation rental homes in Nantucket. We even sent a firefighter and his new wife to New Zealand and another couple to England. The host clubs and districts welcomed the New Yorkers as if they were their own. One firefighter told me he cried when he got the application for his vacation. Every year, we honor the firefighters and the police, and every year I receive a phone call from one of the men and women who we helped. Last year, I invited John Jonas and his crew to speak at our club. Dubbed Miracle of Ladder 6, they're a group of firefighters who were inside the World Trade Center on 9/11. The crew recounted how they were running down the stairs of the North Tower, each carrying 100 pounds of gear. A woman they were helping collapsed from fatigue. Though the building was crumbling around them, they refused to leave her, and as a result, became trapped in the stairwell. 6 hours later, they were able to escape with the woman. But had they not stayed to help her, they said the entire crew would have been killed in the collapse. When they finished telling the story, Jonas thanked his men for their bravery. Everyone in the room was clearly moved. People often remark how terrible it must have been to be the president of the Rotary Club of New York on 9/11. I say just the opposite. I thank God I was in that position. I'm grateful to have used my skills of coordination and my ability to inspire. One of the greatest compliments I received was one of the men in my club, one of them who had not quit the club, said, "You know, Helen, we were talking about what you did after 9/11. We looked around and we asked, who out of all of these men could have handled that? No one. I did it for myself and to open the doors for other women. Many women have joined the club since, many of them young. Somehow I set myself up as a mentor, and that's what the members of my club call me anyway, and I love to inspire them. I love to make them feel proud to be Rotarians. And I have to mention too, because it applies to what's going on today with everyone stuck in their homes. Most of the time, I was in my own home. My husband was not well. He was on oxygen. He happened to die at the end of that year. And I didn't want to leave him alone constantly. So once a week, I went physically into my meeting and any other emergency meeting I had in between. But most of that work was done on the phone and on the computer. And that's a very important thing for you to understand. It is possible. So, as I said, there is much work we still have to do. A vaccine is in the works. And eventually we will have one and it will have to be administered. Rotary's success with polio eradication is sure to be an example as another disease that can profit from our experience with the process that we developed. We must stay connected. Governors, our present governors, upcoming governors, our president, club presidents, and upcoming club presidents, I talk to you when I say, do not lose hope. You were elected by your members because they trusted you, and you can't lose that trust. Have weekly Zoom meetings. Inspire your members. Please keep in touch with every single one of them. Phone calls, newsletters, emails, conference calls, assign projects to them, create teams, yes, even over the internet and the phone. Connect with the outside world and with other countries. The important things here will be communication, transparency, and flexibility. Invite volunteers from the outside to join. Before I introduce Andreas He will say a few words to you, and we will take questions. I would like to leave you with this poem that I wrote after we had a terrible storm a few years ago, and my whole garden outside my home was destroyed. I call it renewal. The storms, they were relentless in the winter of 2014, attacking ferociously every week, wiping all the gardens clean. The destruction was depressing. The bushes were all dead. I brushed away a tear as I surveyed my flower bed. Spring tentatively awakened, her late appearance caused by fear, but she knew she had a job to do to wipe away my tears. With some help from caring hands, spring fulfilled her role, determined to bring back what the storms had stole. Then one bright and sunny morn, a touch of beauty caught my eye. I glimpsed 2 specks of yellow and heaved a thankful sigh. The daffodils remind us when we feel we cannot cope, there always is renewal. In nature, there is hope. And now, I'd like to introduce a person, our executive director, who had just recently joined the club when 9/11 occurred. And I was lucky to have him say he was my rock. Andreas Brungature.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me here. I will just say a few remarks. I want to compliment Helen on her presentation. She is a treasure to our club, and I wish that all of your clubs would have a member like her. As Helen said, we go back to the year 2000 when I joined in December, and shortly thereafter, obviously 9 months later, the two of us had to battle this tremendous catastrophe, which put upon us a very heavy burden, and of course also the empowerment of driving New York City as a club forward, and make sure that the monies that came in, and they were in the amount of $1.4 million, were distributed properly and with due diligence. As Helen stated, transparency was the utmost key, and we had to follow all the guidelines of due diligence. We went as far as interviewing security guards that came to our offices. I don't know if you remember that, Helen, and we actually made sure that they are legit and that everything was in good order. So those are the things we went through and that we did. And we wrote thank you notes for donations as little and yet meaningful of $25. Everybody got a thank you note for us, and we cranked them out like you wouldn't believe. So anyway, thank you so much, Helen, for those good times. So, you know, we will talk later. But that said, now we are in the midst of something completely different. And for those of you that don't know me, and most of you don't know me, I'm originally from Italy. I came to the United States in 1996. I met my wife in Austria, Vienna. We got married there. She worked for the United Nations. And what was supposed to be a 2-year stint became now a much, much longer adventure. And what was interesting to me in this particular crisis was, of course, the fact that Italy was particularly hard hit. So what I felt as being important is, as Rotarians, that we actually had something to learn from a country that was ahead of the curve. So what was very peculiar is that very quickly, as New York Rotarians, we were able to exchange valuable data and information with the Rotary Club of Bergamo, Italy. I have friends there myself, and we were able to actually have the head of the hospital of Bergamo, which you may know was one of the hardest hit cities in the world. And he gave us a wonderful presentation, which acutely made us aware of what New York at the time had still missed, is that no matter what you do, you really, really ought to be cautious, stay at home, and have the social distancing in place. They have experienced, like no other city, what happens through a big soccer match they had in their stadium with a Spanish soccer team. and obviously several COVID-19 infected spectators were in there, and they basically infected the whole stadium. And long term, that resulted in a catastrophe for that beautiful, beautiful historic city of Bergamo. So we collaborated with them now for several weeks. Also, we are working on a project, on an international musical project, which will hopefully involve singers like Justin Timberlake, Lady Gaga, and some Italian musical stars. We're working on that, and we're hoping that the proceeds will benefit healthcare workers on some degree, maybe not so much as outlined originally with PPEs, which is now under control, but it could be going towards something that we did with Helen during her year in 2001, when we sent firefighters on vacations, and maybe the fund will ultimately result in something similar, where healthcare workers can finally have some peace when this is all over and take their families on a vacation. So what have I personally learned from this is that we got write-ups in major newspapers in Italy. I was personally interviewed in my hometown for newspapers. My parents became immensely proud of my doings. I actually had rejuvenated purpose personally for Rotary and its greater cause. And every day that I feel that we do something as a club, and it has also had something to do with my personal actions, it makes me proud. It makes me sleep just a little bit happier. And yeah, like Helen said, we can take this as an opportunity to grow from, and we have to maintain the hope that it all will go on and get much better. And when we come out of it, and it's not just a cliche, I know our club will be stronger and more together than ever. And I see nuances of it already when members reach out and they're eager to start initiatives, and so this will all be well at the end. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Andreas and Helen. There are no words. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, as most of you know. I missed home so much, and just to hear you guys and what the amazing things you do in the most amazing city in the world just touches my heart. And so we're now gonna, and I just wanna thank you again for being here. We're now gonna open it to Q&A. So the way this is gonna work is, if you have a question, please write it into the chat section very clearly, marked question, and Amber and I will moderate this real quick and we'll get some questions. So Amber, do you wanna start?
Jim actually might have wanted to get us kicked off today.
Jim?
Let me make sure he's unmuted though.
I'm there. Yeah, I wanted to, Helen, on a little other subject, I was wondering if you could, briefly maybe summarize or give one big event during your term as the Rotary International representative to the United Nations. I think most of our Rotarians know about the relationship between Rotary and the UN. But can you briefly describe a little bit about your experience being the RI representative, being the only really, I guess, nonprofit representative to the United Nations, and what that meant to you and what that meant for Rotary to be in that position?
Well, the most important thing I feel that the United Nations gave us as representatives to do was Rotary UN Day. For 10 years, I helped to coordinate this important day, where we not only had the opportunity to show our projects to the outside world and to each other, but it also inspired people and connected people and allowed people to network with each other within Rotary. One of our positions was networking with other nonprofit organizations so we could do bigger projects and different kinds of projects. From that experience, even after I finished my 10 years as rep, it moved into the international breakfast meetings at the UN, where I now coordinate. And we have ambassadors and diplomats every single month It's once a month, early morning on Wednesdays, third Wednesday of the month. And we learn what's really going on in the back room of each of these countries. Very, very interesting. Another important thing about the UN that a lot of people don't realize is that we never really could have started to eradicate polio without them. Working with the World Health Organization and with the Centers for Disease Control and those groups within the UN. And because of that, we have immunized over 2 billion children. And maybe one day we'll say that about the coronavirus vaccine. It's a platform to showcase Rotary, the projects, the networking, and the meeting of other nonprofits. Then, of course, there's the Youth Assembly at the UN, where hundreds of students and young professionals come together each year from almost every country in the world. One of the other things that grew out of my position as a representative was the global Model UN conferences. I had been speaking all around the world to the Rotary districts and the Rotary clubs. And then all of a sudden, I started to be invited to speak to these conferences, younger people. And I've spoken, in fact, right before this happened, which gave me a little worry at the end, was I was invited by the Italian Diplomatic Academy to speak to 1,700, the week before this happened, 1,700 of their aspiring diplomats and ambassadors. They were all high school youngsters. And I always love to inspire them, to show them that they have the platform now to create the world that they want with our help. And I just enjoyed speaking to them. That's why I still feel that we still owe them this obligation of not giving up hope and showing them what we as Rotarians can do. Just so many things. And I must say one other thing. When I first came in as a representative that first year, they threw the youth program onto me because people were complaining it was not successful. It was boring. It was this, it was that. So I worked and worked to make it different. And I put a few innovations in. But when I wanted to put a table of youth into the adult program, I was told by the other men in my group, no, that will never work. They're going to get wild. They're only high school kids. It's never going to work. Well, I did it anyhow. And I must say that I brought youngsters from different countries to show their projects. This was the first time one of our tables at Rotary UN Day got a standing ovation. So as I said, and I always tell people, when you have a gut feeling, it's usually because you've had experiences like this and you know in your heart and your mind it's going to be successful. Cut out the naysayers. That's what I did during 9/11. Do you think I had time to get permission from the board at Rotary International for every single step I took? I knew what had to be done, and I had confidence to do it. So that was, I guess that was a long answer to your little question. So I get carried away. Any other question?
That was an amazing answer. Thank you for that. I'm going to read off another question that we got in here from, looks like from Marty in Round Rock. He wanted to know if you have ever written a book on your experiences. Is there a book out there?
You know, it's very funny because I am a writer and I've helped other people to write. I started a book because people have asked me to. And it's amazing. It's the hardest thing for me to write about myself. But I'm going to force myself to do it because so many people have asked me. And I just really want to know, what do people want to know?
Everything you're talking, I think you have 112 people on this call right here today that are all urging on the book. So yay.
Okay, I'll really force myself to do it.
Okay, good.
So here's a question, and I'll try to paraphrase. What is, for Andreas and for Helen, what is a surprising challenge you came up with while leading through crisis that you were surprised to confront, but how you got through it? And then also, one piece, I mean, you've already inspired us today, but anything else you can give us, like another tool to inspire all the Rotarians on this call and beyond that are going to listen to this on the website? How do we take this crisis and rise above it to make a long-lasting impact like you guys did in 9/11 and what you're doing now?
First of all, remember why you joined Rotary. And remember why you love Rotary. You love it because it gives you a platform. It gives you the opportunity to take things you're passionate about, create a team of friends around you to do your projects with you, and get help from Rotary International with grants and so forth, and make things work. How old are we? How many projects have we done around the world? How many successes have we had? Why should this be different? This is it sounds crazy because we're going through such a disaster and worry, but this is an exciting challenge, and you've got to look at it this way. We have an opportunity here to rise above it. The one thing that came out for me that I will never forget was that it gave me and everyone else an opportunity to be in control instead of out of control. And this is your opportunity as well. Instead of lying back and worrying and not being able to sleep at night, whatever, put your mind to work. Get on the internet and be in control. There's so many different things you can do. The health workers need help. Elderly people are stuck in their homes, isolated. You know how much they'd appreciate a call once a week? So I would say, just be a Rotarian.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Andrea, do you have anything that you confronted during 9/11, but also now that is surprising to you and how you overcame it?
That was surprising to us during 9/11?
I think if Andreas had something that he'd like to share.
Yes, Andres.
What is not so much surprising, but what I think we can learn from this is that we have friends around us who are really at the forefront of this crisis every day. I never realized when somebody, and I have several friends whose spouses are healthcare workers, nurses at the hardest hit hospitals in New Jersey and New York. And I never realized what it really meant to be a registered nurse until something like this comes about. And so as Rotarians, we really should learn to show our emotions to those people that fight for us, to send them a text, to send them, yeah, why not, an emoji, a heart emoji, tell them we love them, because pray for them, whatever it is. But I think we ought to let our guard down, and once in a while, it's okay if we cry on a phone, it's okay if we tell somebody we love them more than we normally would and we get a little mushy. I think it's just a time where, as humans, we can learn to be less controlling of our mind and let our emotions take over once in a while. That was what was really amazing. And over the past several weeks, we had actually the privilege of having some of those registered nurses talk to us, and it's truly touching. I mean, I don't think there was a dry eye in the Zoom room when they explain how they have to put garbage bags on in the middle of Queens because they didn't have the proper ropes or the proper gas. So it's shocking that something like that can happen in a modernized country, but it does happen, and we have to learn from it. So that's it.
Thank you. And I can't even read some of the texts I'm getting from my friends in New York, and I just want to say that we are all sending tons of love and prayers from all over our district and beyond to all of you. We are here for anything you guys need, anything we can do to support you. Please let us know. Also, I just wanted to say that Andreas invited everybody on this call to the New York meeting next Thursday, New York Rotary Club meeting. So if you want to go into your chat room, there's a Zoom link, and it starts at 11 o'clock Central Time, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. So it'd be awesome for everybody to join and listen to their awesome programs. again, Helen and Andreas, on behalf of everyone here, it is an honor to have you both. And thank you again for all you do for humanity. It is so inspiring today to listen to you.
The honor was
So
entirely
you.
mine. Thank you.
And I just want to say real quickly before I pass it to Jim to wrap up, we have an incredible series to continue. I want to remind everybody, all of the Zoom series so far is on our district website. Last week, we had a panel of nonprofits talking about their needs. It was a great panel. Please, if you haven't heard it, or if you want your club to listen, go onto our district website. Amber's going to show that here in just a second, where to find it. And all of our series, today's episode will be on the district website in the next couple of days. So share this with your club. Share this with guests. People that are like, what is that Rotary that you're so into? Let them hear this call, and that will inspire them to join. Trust me. And then next week, we have another one of my favorite Rotarians, another dear friend who is just an incredible, inspiring speaker. Past RI Vice President Jennifer Jones will be here, and she'll be talking about what is Rotary's response around the world, and how are we preparing for what's ahead. So please spread the word. Get on the call next week. And Andreas and Helen and Larry and everybody who's visiting, we'd love to have you back on next week. Here's the hint. The Zoom link is the same. It does not change. So you can just keep the Zoom link and join next Friday at 4 o'clock Central. We'd love to have you. And then after that, we have Tabitha Sparks from the Rotary Foundation will be coming on to talk about how to give and support the Rotary Foundation during this time, and where is that money going. And we'll also be getting an update and hopefully some really awesome, because we hope to have already done it, some awesome stories from our district DAP grant, which will be an awesome project giving money to support local hospitals and first responders with PPE equipment, et cetera. So we'll have an update on that in 2 weeks. And we have more series to come. The entire team, we're working really hard every day on this, trying to come up with inspiring programs for all of you guys to stay connected and inspired to be members of the #1 service organization on planet Earth, and that is the truth. Rotary is the answer to transforming the world. So this is our time. So I really appreciate everybody being on. Jim has some things to say, and then we'll wrap up.
Thanks, Patrick. And again, Helen and Andreas, thank you so much. Director Larry, thank you so much for being with us. Amber's going to put up our district website for you visitors. If you want to go and look at our website and listen to the recording again, it's rotarydistrict5870.org. You can, under the events tab, you hit the Zoom series, and that will have all our resources that have the place for all the recorded meetings and things like that we've had, different kind of resources, how to chat, how to Zoom, and how to, which clubs are having online meetings, so that you can go there and you can find out which clubs if you want to go visit a club. One of the things I do want, and a lot of the things that Helen and Andreas was saying was related to service, and that's what we're all about, especially at this time of crisis. As Helen basically said, we can't worry about the things we can't control. We need to worry about the things we can control. And one of the things that we can control is our continued involvement with our members, with our clubs, and with our community. Last week, I know some of you couldn't get on because of the holidays, but last week we talked with numerous service organizations, nonprofit organizations, and how we could help. We also put on our website, and you can see this is on the very first page of the website, some ideas, some things that clubs have done, some ideas that if you look at it, maybe that's good for your club. Maybe it's something that you could take and do with it. One of the neat things that has come out of this is the first thing that's mentioned is the Round Rock Club and other clubs have been doing a car parade around the St. David's Hospital in Round Rock. There's 75 or 80 cars that just ring that building, and they do it at the time of a shift change for all the essential workers at the hospital, honking horns, handing out signs or holding up signs, and just making a big whoop-de-doo out of the whole thing. And every Monday, starting this Monday, is going to be Rotary night at the car parade. So anybody in the area, if you can drive out there and get there a little before 6:30, you can take part of that. And there's just so many other things that we can do, giving meals to people. If you decide to do that, please use your, if you can, use your local folks and your local caterers. I've got nothing against McDonald's and the Whataburger, but if you got a local restaurant that helps with this type of thing, we want this to be a living, breathing document. So if your club is doing something unique, please send me an email or send Pam an email and we'll update this thing. And I'd like all the clubs to take a look at this, because there may be something on there that you hadn't thought about. You know, the one silver lining that I see out of this thing, or one of the silver linings that may come out of this, is the creativity that Rotarians have come up with during this time. There's a lot of things that we probably never thought we would do or never even would try to do. But as Helen said, you just do it. You know, go out there, use some of these ideas that you're doing now, that there's no reason you can't continue these into the next Rotary year and the next Rotary year. So get your creative juices going to see how you can help your community and help your fellow members. And again, thank you. We had a wonderful, wonderful crowd today, the biggest we've ever had. I want to invite all the guests from India, from the United States, from our zone, from our other districts that were able to join us. Please try, and we're doing this every Friday at 4 o'clock. As Patrick said, same Zoom channel, as the old show used to say, same bat time, same bat channel. So just join us if you can. You're always welcome. And again, thank you, Rotarians and guests, for joining us here. So Patrick or Amber, if there's any final things, or if there's anything, Director Larry, if there's anything you'd like to add before we get out of here. We do promise everybody we try to get out of here within the hour, so we're pretty close. So Amber or Patrick, anything you want to say to wrap it up?
Larry, would you like to say something?
This is Larry. I'll just say again, thank you for inviting me, and I find Helen and Andreas's remarks so inspirational, and thanks to all of you for participating today.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you,
Hope to
Larry.
see you next week. Again, everyone, thank you for being here. We always love feedback, so please email Amber, myself, Pam, Jim. We'd love to hear feedback. If anybody has any ideas of a dynamic speaker in the weeks ahead, we plan on continuing to do this until life gets back to normal. So again, we want to thank all the guests today from India, Brazil, all over the United States, especially New York, and our guest speakers, and to all of our District 5870 family. Thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week.
And
So
Amber, I would ask if you would just kind of unmute anybody or everybody. If I know people need to go, but if you want to just hang out and talk and maybe ask some questions and fellowship for a while, we'll hang around till the last person decides to log out. So again, have a great weekend.
We'll
Thank you very
recording
much
now.
from United Kingdom.
Round of applause, everybody.
Thank you. Applaud yourself.
Hey, Jim, I've got.
Thank you for doing this, Jim.
Bye, everybody.
Hey.
Bye.
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 Hey, Jim, I've got something.
Hello,
to share.
everyone.
Yeah, who's saying? Who's talking?
I am.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Okay, this is from District Governor-elect Rick Price at the District Assembly back in 2012. He gave everyone a button, and I found it the other day.
I
See
like
that?
it.
There you go.
Very
Perfect.
cool.
Absolutely perfect, John.
I can't see it. What's it say?
Well, it says it's one of those red circles with an X through it, and it says we've always done it that way, so we're not going to do that. But around the border it says don't be afraid to fail or be afraid not to try.
Good, very good.
I love that button. I want one.
Chew.
Yes.
Everybody have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thank you.
Governor Buckley, one of these days, I want you to give me a call and I'm going to show you how to get on Zoom on your phone.
No,
So you
we
can
want
actually
to
see pictures.
face.
Well, then you'll know what I look like.
Believe me or not, you can do it.
Then you'll know what kind of mess I'm in.
Well, you'll be able to see people. You can still turn your video off, but at least you can see things that people are showing.
Well, then you'll find out some of my secrets. Like how Galen and I are getting through this social distancing thing.
We have our sources, Tim. We already know your secrets.
Well, I don't. Well, the way we're getting through this is that we're adhering to that admonition to not touch your face. So I'm not shaving and she's not putting on makeup, and therefore we have no problem whatsoever staying at least 6 feet away from each other.
It is going to be kind of fun when we all get back together, but if everybody recognizes all